Hello, 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 and welcome back to another edition of the Jake and Andy Show. It is November 7th, 2017, and we're only on our third episode. What went wrong? Whatever, let's just get into some news.
Last week, the National Archives released thousands of classified JFK files regarding the assassination and whether Lee Harvey Oswald was alone or was there an inside job going on. Akon, I know you read into those files, all 1,000 of them, correct?
Thousands, and no, I didn't. But I did read some of them, and this all sparked from the Oliver Stone film JFK. It was released in 1991. It sparked a debate in Congress, and it led to the President John F. Kennedy Assassinations Record Collection Act of 1992. I'm looking at it on my phone. And basically it said after 25 years, which it was last week, that all classified files of the assassination would be released, and President Trump allowed the release, though he did block a few of them, which he thought would be a threat to national security. And there was a lot of things in those files, a lot of conspiracy theorists. It either made them come up with more conspiracy theories, it closed some theories. There was a lot of weird things in there.
Fishy stuff.
Fishy stuff. Very fishy.
We asked some local educators, Mr. Corbyn and Mr. Gillespie, down at the New Gates Middle School about what they had to think about this, and we'll send it over to that.
We are here with Mr. Corbyn, a history aficionado. And Mr. Corbyn, before we start off this interview, we understand that you did some work with the JFK Library many years ago, I believe, and you said 1967?
You get the dates. I just found out about this a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to work things out. It was a school year, 76, 77.
Oh, 76,
Yeah.
77?
Yeah, I spent, at that time I was teaching at the high school.
Really?
I taught at all levels here, elementary, junior, senior high, and then I went back to the elementary.
So do you mind telling us about the JFK Library and what you did there?
Well, it was out on Propeller Road, and it was very primitive, but at the same time, if you were going to be a researcher, and I was the first one in this school system to receive a full sabbatical. At the time later on, some of the administrators got involved in that. But the types of things that were going on there were a boon for me because, as I say, I had access to anything there that was not put aside by Ted. Everyone knew who Ted was. You said Ted. It was Ted Sorensen, who had awesome power in that situation. I had every day when I would go in, and I went in just about every day of the school year. I'd drive over from Situate over to Propeller Road, and the Federal Records Center kept everything there for Kennedy, pending the building of a new library for him.
As you know, yesterday, the Congress and President Trump released all the files relating to JFK's assassination, and there are thousands of files there. That's like, I think, if you download it on a computer, it's about 20 gigabytes. Have you yourself read any of these JFK assassination files?
I have not.
They have some very interesting stuff that actually can tie in with all the conspiracy theories that people have. So did you yourself have any conspiracy theories about the death of JFK?
Well, I'll put it this way, without getting into a long to-do with to be looking at the background that this fellow had, Lee Harvey Oswald, I don't see, in my own mind, I don't see how he possibly could have done all of this all by himself.
Yeah.
The way it worked out. So that could suggest a number of things. The mafia might have been involved. The Cuban certainly had Fidel Castro had no love for Kennedy, and he may have been involved with it. But I feel that it was somebody, in that respect, it was a conspiracy. There were people involved in there, or a person or two involved, along with Lee Harvey Oswald, who supposedly was the only individual involved.
Do you think the federal government could have redacted any of these files, or do you think they are being honest and releasing every single file on them?
Well, that's a fair question. You have to, as I say, this goes all the way back to the very beginning of our country's history, in terms of if you have a good person around you, like Kennedy had his Dave Powers. Mm-hmm. Watergate, for instance, would never have occurred had there been a Dave Powers at that time, and he was what they call Kennedy's Man Friday, a person who took care of all the little things. For instance, on a Sunday morning, when they'd go to church. Jack Kennedy never carried any money, never carried a wallet with him, and forever. And Dave Powers himself told me this. He said I'd get a nudge as they were coming around to collect for the mass, and say, "Dave, give me a 10, will you? Give me a 10." And he never got paid back. That school year, 1976, 77, was really unique because I had, as I said, complete access. I had people coming and going. World leaders would be coming in. The Kennedy family members would come in and have a chance to sit on top of them. And they automatically, and they could take a lesson here in this building. Twice a day there were breaks, a formal break where everyone was invited to come down. Everyone, no matter whether you were a big shot or not, or a small shot, and you had the opportunity to sit around. And no 2 days in a row do they want you to sit with the same people. Really? And that was it. So I was invited to take part and sit down and listen, take part. I did mostly listening. These people were, again, many of them world famous, or members of the Kennedy family who were there frequently.
Is there any information that you learned at the JFK Library that you're not allowed to disclose in public?
No, no restriction on me. Well, you talk about that type of situation. If you notice this sweatshirt that I'm wearing, I was in Army Security Agency, and I was in East Africa, and we were told that I was told, as were my buddies, that there were certain things we were not to talk about when we came back to the United States. Mm-hmm. So that was 1955, 56, really? 57 when I was in East Africa.
East Africa?
East Africa. I was there in Army. I was in the Army Security Agency. Size to these people, we're like, human beings are like kaleidoscopes. Yeah. We really are. And for me to sit here and give you this bit of information, and someone would come in 5 minutes after I leave and approach it in a completely different type of situation.
So, do you think that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone?
No, absolutely not. I believe that he had to have some kind of assistance. Who these people might have been, that I don't know. But I just can't believe that a person with his background would ever. And it wasn't just the fact, someone shot Kennedy, and this fellow had received the marksman award in the military. Well, I got that too when I was at basic training back at Fort Dix, New Jersey. So that was nothing to make. But they frequently will point that out. Well, he was a marksman.
Yeah.
Well, there was no big deal in that. I also fired 2 different types of machine guns. When I was going through basic training, but that's another story too.
Okay. Do you have? If you had to guess, who would you think helped Lee Harvey Oswald on this?
I frankly feel that it probably was. If I had to make an educated or not so educated guess, I'd say to me it's the mafia.
But why would the mafia want to do this? What?
Well, it had nothing to do with the presidency directly. It had to do with JFK and his. Some of the extracurricular activities that were going on, and I picked my words very carefully here. It had nothing to do with government policy or anything else, but he was the president. Actually, it wasn't so much the president that the mafia had no use for. It was Bobby Kennedy.
Yeah, the attorney general, right?
Oh, absolutely. They hated each other.
Because I know he went against the mafia a lot. They always were fighting each other in certain circumstances. I don't have a specific story about it, but I know that was a big topic for Robert Kennedy. Yeah,
the mafia leader who stood out in this situation was Trafficante, who was, I believe, the mob boss of New Orleans, that area there. And then there were a number of others in the Chicago area who were very much interested in seeing Kennedy out of the way. And if they had to do it directly, okay. If they had to do it indirectly, go after Bobby, then go after Bobby. Well, they did eventually, 68. Yeah, he was taken out by a young fellow, from the...
For sure, it was a busboy.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And then the last question, short answer if you want. Do you believe what the federal government is telling us about this?
No, I don't trust the government, but I don't bend over backwards to feel that way. I think all governments have to be watched. Churchill made a statement, I remember, just before World War II began regarding that. He said all forms of government basically are bad. You can't trust any of them. The one that we have to least worry about would be, he said, the type of government that we have here in the United States. So he needed to speak about his own country, Great Britain. So
All right, well, thank you very much for doing this interview, Mr. Corbyn. We are here with Gates Middle School teacher Mr. Gillespie. He teaches history, and he's actually teaching a class right now, so we're going to go real quick. Mr. Gillespie, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Excellent.
So, yesterday, the federal government released the JFK assassination files. Have you read any of these?
I have not read any of the files, actually, but I did hear about it on the news.
You did?
Yes.
Now,
And I was familiar with them actually coming out because I remember when the Oliver Stone movie JFK was out and there was a big to-do about those files, and I remember them saying 25 years down the road we're going to release these files, and everybody's like, oh my god. And here we are 25 years
25 years later. So yes,
They look just as good as I did then too.
you do. Anyway, Congress decided they were going to release these files 25 years later, so in 1992. So, did you have any conspiracies about JFK's death before these files came out?
Do you mean, did I suspect there was a conspiracy?
Yes.
I don't tend to think that there was a conspiracy technically with the JFK assassination personally.
Personally.
Yeah.
He was trying. J. Edgar Hoover was trying to convince people that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone,
Right.
which at this moment we do not know.
Right.
Is that a bell? All right. So there's a lot of files in there that it's really bringing the conspiracy theorists back to life.
I think it is bringing it back to life, but I think that people should look into the actual relationship between the Kennedy family and Lyndon Johnson as vice president, and there was a lot of interesting vignettes in that relationship, his relationship with RFK, and the fact that JFK highly respected Lyndon Johnson and vice versa, and there wasn't that kind of respect between Bobby Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson, and the situation in Cuba. All these different things play into it, where you would think that people obviously are going to come up with all kinds of different their own versions of the way that events actually went based on who they thought was being selfish about government control and who was actually loyal to the people who were actually in charge.
Do you think that the federal government has redacted any of these files? That could be damning to anybody?
I think it's quite possible, but I don't have any proof of that, obviously, because I'm just a mere teacher at Gates Intermediate School.
The greatest middle school in
Gates Middle School, that's correct.
the greatest middle school in all of
Greatest
America.
middle school east of the Mississippi, at least, if not all of America. Maybe interplanetary.
Do you think that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone?
I do. I do think he acted alone, yes.
Mr. Corbyn believed that there was another presence involved.
Mr. Corbyn believe that? Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Corbyn he's a great fictional storyteller, and although I work closely with Mr. Corbyn, I would be much more practical in my assessment of it. I think Lee Harvey Oswald probably acted alone, and as unbelievable as that might seem to some. I think people can make something out of anything. So I think that in the government bureaucracy that we have and that was growing at the time JFK was president, actually, I think that people can make something out of anything.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Gillespie.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
You want to do the next topic?
Okay, next topic.
Hollywood is in shambles.
It is indeed. It is indeed.
There's a lot of bad stuff going on. It all started at the beginning of October of last year. Producer Harvey Weinstein, he was in charge of Miramax, which later turned into the Weinstein Company. He was in charge of a lot of Oscar-winning films. Basically, every year one of his movies was nominated at the Oscars. And it came out, a New York Times op-ed piece on, not op-ed, a New York Times piece on him about all the sexual misconduct he's been accused of. And that led to more and more women coming out about his advances. And basically he got fired from his company. He's in hiding right now. And then it came out that another actor, Dustin Hoffman, was allegedly accused of doing this misconduct. And then it came out just last week that Kevin Spacey was doing all this bad stuff in Hollywood. It's basically kind of like a snowball effect. Everybody's being brought down.
That's kind of an unfortunate thing, you know. Weinstein obviously had a lot of good movies that I've enjoyed, as well as Kevin Spacey acting. He's one of my favorite actors.
Usual Suspects.
Usual Suspects.
House of Cards. They actually canceled House of Cards the last season.
I know.
So that's not happening anymore. It's kind of show's getting bad anyway, but
I never watched it.
we're going to skip that. Anyways, it's basically kind of sad to see a lot of people look up to celebrities like this, and now it's just coming out that a lot of them are not good people, and it's kind of unfortunate.
So it kind of happens when fame gets to you, you know. It happens.
Fame goes right to the head, and you do things that you should not be doing.
All right, the next topic, daylight savings. So on November 5th at 3 a.m., the clocks went back. The sun went down earlier, and your sleep went up. A lot of stuff happening with daylight savings.
That was just incredible.
I
That
know.
was nice.
Thank you.
Nice
That was off the
representation.
dome. So there's a lot of debate going around with daylight savings. Is it necessary anymore? It was originally incorporated for agricultural
We
reasons.
talked to Mr. McGuire. He was not on camera. We did ask him. Sorry, I thought we're.
There's a lot of debate now going on about if we should switch to this new time for just Massachusetts, where we would have
Atlantic time.
Atlantic time. So Mr. McGuire was telling me that in the summer there would be 9:30 p.m. sunsets.
Which I'm not a fan of. I would not like it. A lot of people like
I
it.
think that would be sick.
See, I don't like it. It's not natural to me. It's not what I grew up with.
But the whole debate about why we have daylight savings time now is because people believe that, well, we're not really an agricultural country anymore, so is it still necessary to have? And we asked a couple students around the school. We talked to Mr. McGuire. We'll send over those interviews right now. We will be gaining an hour of sleep, but the earliest sunset will be at 4:12 in December. What do you think about that?
I'm glad that we get an extra hour of sleep, but I hate that it gets dark really, really early because, 4:30 is a little too early, and I like to be doing things outside around then, so.
Do you think it should still be around?
Yeah, it kind of helps with everything, I guess, but,
Even though we're not an agricultural country anymore, really?
well, some of us aren't, but in the other parts of the country, yeah, they are, so. We shouldn't change it for everyone.
Nice. The sunset is going to be much earlier. Earliest it's going to be is at 4:12 in December. What do you feel about that?
I'm pretty happy about gaining an hour of sleep, and I think it's good because everyone's going to wake up earlier, be more productive for the sunrise.
Yep. Do you feel like this is still necessary in the United States, even though we're less agricultural, I guess?
I don't think so actually. Because we have Shaw's and like Stop and Shop and all that stuff, so we don't really need it. I think we're fine.
All right, Jake Stewart, Senior. What are your opinions on daylight savings?
I don't sleep that much anyway, so now sleep is really just pocket change to me in the grand scheme of things. It'd be great if we just had no homework so that I could get plenty of sleep. Even though it's senior year and I barely get any anyway.
Do you think the daylight saving system is outdated at all?
Yeah, well, the agricultural system of America is pretty much irrelevant, given that we produce very little food for ourselves. And on top of that, we don't sell that much. The main thing that we specialize is in corn. But I do feel like I don't even pay attention to daylight saving times, so it's pretty irrelevant. So I'd say that you could just throw out the entire system.
Sunset is going to be in December. It's going to be at 4:12 p.m. And it's going to be around a 9-hour day. What are your opinions on that?
It's really unfortunate. I hate it when it gets dark early. And honestly, daylight savings was just made so farmers could do crops and stuff, and we should just do one or the other, either keep it the way it is or, I don't know, we just have to make a decision. We can't have it both ways.
Thanks. I was just about to ask about the farming stuff, and you're already educated. We got a very educated man right here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys for participating in our interviews. Andrew, what do you think about this?
I like daylight savings. I like that extra hour of sleep. I got 9 hours of sleep the other night by accident. Didn't mean to happen, but I got it. You're clapping into the microphone. I do enjoy going outdoors. I'll give you that. I like fresh air. And I like the winter.
Akon
but
hates the outdoors.
I cannot go in the sun. I cook. I'm a vampire. I have to go out at night in the summer to even get air, because going out there, I get cooked. The time has come.
Time has come. McGuire thought of the day. Boom!
Thanks, Jake and Akon. Have you ever thought to yourself, this is the longest day ever, or a week feels incredibly long and it really just shouldn't feel that way because all the time is the same? Well, it's kind of been that way this school year, and I have a somewhat scientific theory behind it that I wanted to share. So, This October of 2017 will go down in history as the warmest October on record ever since 1860, and we've been keeping records since that long. It's the warmest October ever. Basically, September and October have been a giant extension of summer, and if you walk around the halls of SHS, you know this. People are dressing like summer, people are acting like summer. It's been an extended 2-month summer. So everybody feels like, is this school year the longest school year ever? No, it's only been 2 months, but it certainly feels that way, and it feels longer because of my summer theory. Now, when we get a big weather change coming up next week, things will start to feel like they're going a little bit faster and that we're actually back into the school year. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.
All right, Mr. McGuire, thank you for telling us about
All right, yeah,
that.
guys, thanks for joining us today. Love you guys. Keep it up. Thanks.
Her name was